According to Gervase's Chronicle, when the moon split into two parts. Gervase's Chronicle, written in a medieval manuscript, is in the library of Trinity College in Cambridge in the UK. Gervase was a monk of the monastery next to the Cathedral of Canterbury, but also the author of 7 historical works, the most important of which is the Chronicles, which covers the period 1100 to 1199. Some of the most interesting parts of the manuscript do not refer to church matters and of the state, but to astronomical events, including an eclipse of the sun and a spectacular description of the northern lights. But the strangest of all is a description of an extraordinary event that took place on June 18, 1178, according to the Julian calendar. This is research by Rosemary Adelonis Nikos Apostolopoulos. 5 monks from Canterbury Abbey made a report informing Gervase that immediately after the setting of the sun, they observed the upper part of the moon split into 2 parts, and a flaming flame springing up, throwing fire to a considerable distance and burning coals. The 5 men should be included in the group of men who hold a special place in the history of astronomy because they all had the same experience and observed some phenomenon in the sky so strange that the rest of the world was astonished at its description or doubted its existence. In more detail, Gervase himself has recorded, quote, "This year, on the Sunday before the feast of St. John the Baptist, after sunset, when the moon had begun to be distinguished, a wonderful phenomenon was observed by 5 or more men who sat looking at the moon. Now there is a bright new moon, and as usual, at this phase, the horns of the moon were facing the east, and suddenly the upper horn split in 2. From through this partition appeared a lighted torch that threw flames and burning coals to a great distance. Meanwhile, the main body of the moon below was writhing in agony, and to use the words of those who related the incidents to me and saw it with their own eyes, the moon coiled like a wounded serpent. After a while, it returned to its normal form. This phenomenon was verified more than a dozen times, and the fire took various shapes, while after a while everything calmed down. Thus, after these transformations, the horned moon, that is, in its entire length, took on a blackish appearance. The fact this episode is rare in many ways because not only is there no description of an astronomical phenomenon like this in ancient literature, but it is also a mystery that may have been explained 8 centuries later. Jack Hartung and the Giordano Bruner crater. In the mid-1970s, geologist Jack Hartung, who was working at New York University studying craters left by meteorites that have fallen onto Earth, was flipping through a book when he read a brief report on Gervase's manuscript. Curious, Hartung searched for the text of the Chronicle, and when he read the details of the phenomenon on the moon, he suddenly understood what it might mean. Every sentence Gervase said made him believe more and more in his point. The uppermost horn was split in 2, indicates that a dust or cloud had been produced by natural disturbance, thus obscuring part of the moon from the view of earthly observers. A lighted torch throwing flames and glowing embers indicates that gases or liquids had been ejected when the lunar surface was impacted, and the gases had formed a temporary atmosphere around the impacted area, which would have made the moon to appear as if writhing like a wounded serpent. Hartung believed that the witnesses of 1178 may be the only people who witnessed the formation of a large crater on the moon. What Hartung knew was the moon on June 18, 1178. It was in its prime, a small strip in the sky which limited the possibilities of where the collision took place. When the pictures were taken from the satellites and the Apollo mission, Hartung searched for a crater that matched the theoretical assumptions that he had made, and he finally found it. It had a diameter of 22 kilometers and was named Giordano Bruno after the Italian philosopher, mathematician, poet, and astronomer. The location of the crater in question is located exactly at the location which seems to be the point of the description of the strange mystical phenomenon verbally described by the monks to Gervase. For dozens of kilometers around him, there were signs of some great disturbance from a meteorite fall, but also a spectacular system of rays, that is, the explosions of fire as recorded by the monk himself. In short, it is a constant shower of small meteorites that fall onto the dust on the surface of the star at such a fast rate that system of these rays is eroded and explosions occur. So it can be reasonably assumed that Giordano Bruno the crater was formed during our human history. One of these rays was 1,200 kilometers long and was clearly visible in NASA photographs. Hartung observes, over a 3,000-year period, the odds are 1 in 1,000 that something like this would happen on the moon. The likelihood that there will be a report of such an event is even less because only half of the moon could be observed. Observations were not made often, and the observations that were made may not have survived. In short, the possibility that we today have a record of witnessing the creation of such a large crater was even smaller. New elements. However, a recent analysis of ancient astronomical records cast doubt on Hartung's theory. The impact of a meteor large enough to form Giordano Bruno crater would have unleashed a large meteor storm on Earth, estimated by Paul Withers of University of Arizona's Lunar and Planetary Laboratory, comparable to the 1966 Leonid storm, during which in some places 100,000 meteors per hour were recorded. It would also be a very bright phenomenon, very easy to see. At magnitude 1 or magnitude 2, it would be a spectacular sight. Everyone living around the world would have the opportunity to see the best fireworks display in history, according to Withers. However, no vigilant skywatcher of the 12th century reported such a storm. There's no evidence of such a remarkable storm of unprecedented intensity in any known historical records, including European, Chinese, Arabic, Japanese, and Korean astronomical records. In the 1966 meteor shower, during the 66 storm, some locations recorded 100,000 meteors per hour. So what did the witnesses see that the monk of Canterbury recorded? An alternative theory holds that the monks just happened to be in the right place at the right time to see a rebellious meteorite that was already aligned with the moon and about to enter Earth's atmosphere. This idea was strongly suggested by Withers and others in 1977 scientific paper. Withers believed that the 5 ancient sky watchers could have seen the illuminated image of such a meteor traveling along their line of sight and not to affect the moon. It was a very impressive meteorite that burst into flames in the Earth's atmosphere. If you were at the right distance, you would have the perfect geometry, he said. That would explain why only 5 people were recorded as having seen it, because actually meteors, commonly the fragments of the meteorite, become visible only after they have already been in the 45th to 75th mile of the Earth's atmosphere, according to the laws of geometry so far. And this is from Aaron's ZW Blogspot. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.